we're talking about COVID-19, force majeure clauses, and your real estate contract. So first and foremost, I've had 100 calls on whether or not the force majeure clause of the current real estate contract covers events of coronavirus. So I'm going to give you all the same bad news that I have given to everyone else, and that is probably not. And I hate not being able to give you guys a definite answer. At least probably not yet. Maybe I should rephrase. I hate not being able to give a better answer than that, but the truth of the matter is the law on force majeure clauses is really not well developed in Florida. By that I mean there's not a lot of cases, judges who have made rulings and published those rulings about the extent of the acts of God, force majeure clause in contracts. I can tell you that generally they're very specifically interpreted as a matter of law, and it's very hard to get the court to shoehorn an event that is not called for in the actual force majeure clause. I know a really good question that's going around right now is, can a buyer get out of a contract because he's quarantined and can't come in to sign? That's going to be excellent to see how that might get worked out in the light of the availability of online signing now, which I'm going to have another video about next week, that exactly what is e-signing. I'm going to watch my time so I can make sure. If anybody is on and has any questions, feel free to post, and I'll be looking down there every now and then. Put my glasses on in case I get a question. So again, not a lot of direction I can give you on the force majeure. The best way to understand those clauses is they are intended to cover situations where it basically makes you, hi Cindy, where it basically makes it impossible for you to perform, right? So is it impossible to perform because you'd rather not go out of the house? Probably not. Is it impossible for you to perform if you're on an ordered lockdown because you are sick? Probably, although the question about the signing online is going to be a fresh new one, and really the courts are not able to, this is going to be a new issue, just put it that way. This is going to be a brand new issue for them to work out. So what I'm telling people right now is basically try to close. If it's impossible, it's impossible, and you're going to have to deal with the consequences, and we'll try to get you out. But this is not an issue that I don't want to see any of my realtors leading the first case on whether or not force majeure should have been able to be called into effect, meaning that people can back out of the contract. And I realized I didn't do a good job of explaining what a force majeure is. I'm just assuming that everyone knows. So there's a contract. Many of you, the realtors, are familiar with it. Any people that are watching have a general idea that there's a phrase in almost every contract that talks about if it's impossible to perform the contract, then the person who needed to perform in that time is excused. So, for example, if I'm supposed to sign documents for a closing and we're underwater with a hurricane, clearly it's impossible for me to perform. The electricity has gone out, and so documents can't be generated. Impossible to perform. COVID is I'm not seeing yet here in Lake County any situations where I've been able to comfortably say, yes, I think that would be a covered, you can go ahead and back out and have no ramifications. So that's why I'm telling people you need to close. And I'm doing the same thing here that all the other title companies are doing in the law office. You can come in and we have, our 6-foot thing that we do, and we clean everything 15 times a day and all of that. So, and we limit your exposure to people. So it's very safe to come in the office, but still some people don't feel comfortable. So we'll actually send somebody out to your car if that would be more comfortable for you, kind of like a drive-through closing. So because the Florida Realtors probably agrees with me that we shouldn't really think we can rely on the force majeure clause that is in your standard contracts, they have issued the coronavirus addendum. It's crazy. It really just says that they recognize that coronavirus is out there and offers to, and it gives time period where you can extend things. So you can bring it out 15 days, 30 days, 40 days. It doesn't really go anywhere that's helpful in giving any definitions or anything like that. So it's really just a fancy extension. You guys need to use it. Because if you don't and something happens and you didn't have that addendum in place, your customer is not going to be happy. So Tom Burrell asked a question, would specific performance apply? No. So that's the whole point of the force majeure clause, is you don't have to perform if the force majeure clause is triggered. That excuses you. That's the whole point. So you get your deposit back. You don't have to sell if you're the seller. You don't have to buy if you're the buyer. If your inspection period is supposed to pass and everything goes underwater, that's a force majeure, and so that's extended. So a force majeure extends periods of time until it's practicable to actually perform. Generally speaking, that's a big rally because we're talking about a complicated area of law. So the question has been rising, obviously. Can I get out of my real estate contract because of COVID-19? And that's what I was trying to explain, was that I would go ahead and do everything I could to close, because you don't want to be the test case in Lake Orange or Sumter counties for the COVID-19 virus. If you want a more specific COVID-19 addendum to use in your practice, you can have your broker reach out to me and I can talk with them about some language that I've come up with that I think is helpful. But the extension itself that you guys have, just simply you guys being realtors, it really just simply extends the dates. I'm sure by now you've read them. I've had lots of questions about them from people, but I just don't find them that helpful. All it does is says the COVID-19 and gives additions for those and extend time periods, and it's easy to fill in the blank. I know a lot of people are saying, well, can I just put in when the COVID-19 is no longer an issue, for example? That's a problem. That's too vague of a time frame. So you're best using these addendums, and if you want to provide for additional extensions that are addressed by this form, again, that's something you can reach out to me about. But so for now, the coronavirus addendum is out there. Use it, even if you think you don't need to, because you never know, right? And it's going to be that one file where you thought, oh, it's no big deal, I'm closing in 3 days. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can get this on Form Simplicity. This addendum, I will shoot you a copy. If you're looking for one, you can reach out to me via private message. But other than that, on force majeure clauses, so just remember, sometimes you might hear, force majeure is kind of a fancy word. Sometimes you might hear the word acts of God. That's also a one that we use, the acts of God. Again, it's intended for things that people could not plan for, that makes it impossible for them to perform their obligations under the contract, whether it's for to close, the time up for extensions, the time to give notice of something. All of those time periods in your contract are brought into play if there is one of these major disasters. And right now here, I just don't think that I wouldn't feel comfortable advising a client, yeah, don't sign it, you'll be fine. I mean, don't buy that property, you'll be fine, COVID is out, and then they get sued, and then my license is on the line. It's just too much of a gray area. And if you do have to use one of these clauses, do it with caution, talk to an attorney so that you can be prepared as possible. And that's what I wanted you guys to know. So for a recap, force majeure clause, acts of God clauses, they're in all your standard real estate contracts. They're probably not precisely kicked in right now because of the language, and because remember I told you, Florida law so far has said that the language needs to be pretty specific, and what little law there is in the subject in these force majeure clauses have been interpreted very, very narrowly, being in the law, tightly, strictly as they're written. So Florida Realtors has got the COVID extension. You all use it. If you need something that's more detailed, or if you have any questions specific to a situation that you're in right now, please feel free to private message me. People have been taking me up on this opportunity. I've been able to talk to so many of you guys, and some people have been calling because they need help. Some people have been calling just because they have questions and they're scared or afraid, and I've had some people that have called me for me to pray for them. So that was also a tremendous thing that happened. But in any event, you guys stay safe. This is Homeschooling for Realtors force majeure, coronavirus. If I've talked too fast, private message me and I'll call you and probably talk too fast on the phone, but then you can tell me to slow down. Have a great day and be safe. Bye.